Alright, spousal sponsorship. So, apart from the 16 million forms and documents that you've already probably submitted for your application and lost your hair and sleep over, there is one more document that you have to submit, which is the document checklist 5533. Basically, in this document, as the name suggests, you have to check boxes against all the forms and documents that you will provide in your application. And information needs to come from both the sponsor and the principal applicant. So this document checklist is mandatory and you have to submit this along with your application, whether applying online or on paper. So in this video, as always, we'll cover where to find this checklist, who should fill this out, a quick rundown of all the items in the checklist, and finally, how to submit when you are doing the application online versus on paper. So with that, let's roll a quick 8-second time-lapse intro, which you are going to probably skip, and begin with the document checklist. Okay, so the first step is to get to this page. I'm going to link it in the description below. This is not the official guide 5289. This page is going to lead you to that guide, all right? So this is where you'll get your checklist. So you're going to select who you're sponsoring here. So obviously we are talking about spousal sponsorship. So you will select my spouse. Then what country does the person reside in? So this is where you are going to select the country of residence of the principal applicant. Next, do you need to submit documents issued by another country? So yes, you will have to submit documents from India, such as passports, birth certificates, and national identity cards. So you are going to select your country here again, all right? And this will apply for whatever country you're applying from. For this example, we are just going to go with India. It's easier for me. Then you are going to click on Get Checklist and Forms. This is where you will get your entire application packet for the principal applicant and the sponsor, which you have to submit combined. You're already familiar with a lot of forms here. So this video is not about forms, but this is where you will get your checklist. So you will have to download this checklist. Click on this, download it, save it to your desktop or downloads folder, and then open it from there. If you've been watching other videos of mine, you're now familiar with this process. Along with this checklist, there's also another section of country specific requirements. So don't skip this section. A lot of people actually miss out on this section. So it has some forms that you're required to fill, specifically 5562 for India, and some country specific documents such as birth certificates or certificates of adoption, if that applies to you. So we'll get to that later, but I just wanted to show you that there's a lot of data on this page, so don't miss out on that, all right? So once you've downloaded the checklist, then you're going to open it here. This is what it's going to look like. All right, so let's begin. Information about previous examination to be completed by sponsor. Basically, it's saying the person I'm sponsoring was declared as my spouse or partner and was already examined as a non-accompanying dependent when I applied for a permanent resident visa and did not receive an immigrant visa. This means when you did your own permanent resident, which means when the sponsor applied for themselves back in the day, let's say you did your own PR 3 years ago. At that point, if you were not married, you must not have listed your spouse as a non-accompanying dependent. So in this case, the answer would be no. All right. If you, however, the sponsor, when you did your own PR 3 years ago, you were married and you listed your spouse as a non-accompanying dependent and they still haven't received a visa, then you will check yes. For most of you, the situation is going to be no, because even if you listed your partner as a non-accompanying dependent when you were doing your own PR, most of them would have a visa by now. All right. In that case, also you will list no. Then it says if you've never applied for a permanent resident visa, answer no. So there's one situation which I can say with confidence under which you will never have applied for a permanent resident visa for yourself. And that condition is the sponsor has always been a Canadian citizen, which means from birth, the sponsor was a Canadian citizen, then they must never have done their own PR visa, right? Then you will also answer no. For most of you, it's not going to apply, so just check no, all right? Okay, so now let's actually start with the document checklist. So number 1, document checklist, spouse. So you are going to check this box. Number 2, application to sponsor, sponsorship agreement and undertaking, 1344. So you are going to check this box because you are going to complete this form. Remember, you are going to sign an undertaking. Okay, quick note about this form. You, the sponsor and the principal applicant both will have to sign this form, all right? I have an entire video explaining how to fill this form out. It should be showing up on the cards here. It's also linked in the description below. I also have a pinned comment in that video, so you'll be able to see that with huge block letters that says attention in that video, all right? Remember that. Applying offline or on paper, signature is a must. Number 3, application fees. So obviously pay your entire fees. It's about 1100 Canadian dollars. Don't skip any section of the fee payment. Don't go for the installments or anything because it's just going to delay your application. All right. So just check this box. Also check this box, right, of permanent residence. Pay all the fee at once and then you'll have to upload the receipt later on, but that's a topic for another video. Financial evaluation. So it says only complete this form if the person you are sponsoring has one or more dependent children, who has one or more dependent children of their own, which means I think this only applies to grandparent program. So this is not going to apply to your spousal sponsorship. So you can simply leave this blank and it says write NA next to the checkbox. So you're not going to be able to write it right here. So what you'll do is for all the boxes here in this checklist, which don't apply to you, which you have to write NA, once you check all the necessary boxes, you're going to print this out and you're just going to write NA next to those boxes and then you're going to scan it and upload back. All right. If doing online. If doing offline, just print it out, write NA and send it along with your application packet. Next, we come to the principal applicant section, the person who's being sponsored. So check this box here. Then you will have to select the class under which you are applying. So there's 3 options to choose from. Let's look at those. Number 1, I'm currently living in Canada with my sponsor and I'm applying under the spouse or common law partner in Canada class. So the spouse or common law partner in Canada class means that the principal applicant is living with the sponsor who is a PR or citizen. So in that case, you are going to check this box. If you're living outside of Canada, which means the principal applicant is outside of Canada, you're doing the outland sponsorship. The sponsor is in Canada, which would be the case for a lot of you. That's the case for me. My wife is in India. I'm right now in Canada. So this is what I selected or my wife selected. Then third, I'm currently living in Canada and I'm applying under the family class, not under the spouse or common law partner in Canada class. This basically is not for spouse. This may be for a dependent child or other relative who's living in Canada and applying under the family class. So let's say you are being sponsored by your relative in Canada who's a PR or citizen, but you're not their spouse, then you will come under family class. All right. And you have to do some research about what category you can qualify for family class. This is not the point of this video. So for most of you, I think the second option will apply, outland sponsorship, but select whatever applies to you. If you're living with your sponsor in Canada, let's say on a tourist visa or a work permit, then you will select this box. And it also has an option. I'm also including an open work permit application. So this means if you're living with your sponsor in Canada, you can also submit your open work permit application along with your permanent resident application. I've actually made a video about open work permit explaining these things in a little more detail. Should be showing up on the cards here and linked in the description below. So once you're done with this section, you move on to the next section, generic application form. Remember, this is all the principal applicant section. So we are going to check this box because you will be submitting this form 0008. And again, you can download the form right here and there's 2 ways to submit this. If you're doing the application offline, then you will submit the offline form. If you're doing the application online, then this form 0008 is digital, which means there's no barcode, no PDF. You just have to type in your information digitally, and by typing in your name towards the end, you sign the form digitally. So again, I've made an entire video on how to submit this form digitally online. It should be showing up on the cards here and it's linked in the description below. So check that video out if you're looking for instructions on 0008 online. Okay. Number 7, country specific requirements. So remember what we talked about earlier, there are some documents and forms which you may have to fill if the principal applicant is from a specific country. So to get this, you'll come back to this page, the application kit that we saw earlier. Select your country. We've already done that for India. So I'm just going to go with the India example in this case, but select your country and then you'll get your application list. So if you scroll down under country specific requirements for India, you see another form here, 5562, supplementary information. Basically, this is information about your travel history for the past 10 years for the principal applicant, which you will have to provide as part of your sponsorship application. So this has to be filled by the principal applicant, and this form, when you're doing the application online, is digital, which means again, no barcodes, no PDF. You just have to enter information in the portal, and you can apply the same concepts to the offline version also. So it gives you the link right here. If you're doing the application on paper, Just click this link, download the form, fill it out, send it along with your application packet. All right. So this is one form for country specific requirements, specifically for India in this case. But I think this 5562 will apply to other countries also. So always make sure you select your country from this list, and whatever forms are listed here, you will have to submit them. 5562 may not apply to all countries, but it will apply to a lot. Okay. Then for India, if you scroll down, there's further instructions for documents. So it says send photocopies unless instructed otherwise. This applies to all the documents that you, the principal applicant, and even the sponsor will submit as part of your application. So it says photocopies unless instructed otherwise, meaning just send photocopies. You don't have to send original unless they ask you for it. Okay. Then there's a section about identity documents for adopted child with Indian passport. So if this applies to you, read through that and submit those. Then there's a requirement for birth certificate. So if you, the principal applicant, is from India, then you will have to provide a birth certificate issued in India. And if you don't have the birth certificate, you can provide the voter ID card and old school records which are mentioned here. But then you will have to have a very valid explanation why you don't have a birth certificate, and I don't know if you have to get that notarized or generate an affidavit for that. So don't take my word for it. Make sure you get the birth certificate. If you don't have it, look into how you can get that done. All right, because birth certificates are critical. If you don't have a birth certificate, then do more digging into what other documents can you provide other than the voter ID card and school records in place of a birth certificate, which will work. All right, I don't have much information about that at this point. I'll probably share that in another post or video, but for now all I can say is birth certificates are required for India. So that is the country specific section. So you're going to check this box and you are simply going to list the forms here. All right, so you're going to list 5562 here. Okay, next up is 8 additional family information. Basically, this is the form where you, the principal applicant, provide information about your family. Again, I have an entire video explaining the basic concepts of this form. It should be showing up on the cards here. It's linked in the description below. So check that video out to learn the general concepts about that form. And for now, you'll just check this box because you will have to submit this form. All right. So next up is number 9, Schedule A, Background Declaration 5669. Again, another important form for the principal applicant to fill out, and this is mandatory, so has to be submitted online or offline, doesn't matter. This also happens to be in the latest video on my channel 5669 online, so check that video out to learn instructions about this form. And if you're doing the application offline, then you can just download the form from here and follow the same instructions. So you're going to check this box and move along. Okay, so next up is the section for both the sponsor and principal applicant. Number 10, relationship information and sponsorship evaluation 5532. So this happens to be another very critical form for your sponsorship application. Both the sponsor and principal applicant will have to provide information, and both the sponsor and principal applicant will have to sign this form. All right, whether applying online or on paper, doesn't matter. You will have to sign it, both of you. So be very mindful about that. So I'm going to check this box here. Number 11, use of a representative 5476. So if you have hired a representative to do the application on your behalf, then you will have to sign this form along with your representative and your spouse. If your sponsor is doing the application for you, in that case, your sponsor is acting as your representative, then you and your sponsor both will have to sign this form. So let's assume you're not appointing a representative, you are being sponsored by your spouse, who's a PR or citizen of Canada, but you, the principal applicant, is able to do the application for themselves. Then you are going to check this box, not appointing a representative. But from what I assume, in majority of the cases, the sponsor, who is the PR living in Canada, will be doing the application for their spouse, who is either living outside of Canada or in Canada on a temporary visa. In that case, the sponsor will become a representative, and in that case, you, the principal applicant, will have to check this box, yes, and check this box, because you are appointing a representative. It doesn't matter if it's a paid or unpaid representative. As long as someone else is doing the application for you, they are a representative. And one more quick thing before we move to the next section, there is a lot of confusion about which forms to sign and which not to sign when you are doing your sponsorship application, especially as it relates to applying online and offline. So I've made an entire video about signatures, specifically explaining how signatures work. So you can use that video as a reference point. Don't rely on it completely, double check the information. So it should be showing up on the cards here and linked in the description below. So check it out and learn everything about signatures for sponsorship application, all right? Then number 12 is authority to release personal information to a designated individual. So this is not going to apply to most of you. So for now, I'm just going to leave it blank because it didn't apply to me, all right? Okay, so part B is supporting documents. So let's move on with the supporting documents for sponsor. Number 1 is your sponsor's status in Canada. So you are definitely going to check this box, and then you have two options. You can either be a permanent resident sponsoring your spouse or a citizen sponsoring your spouse. So select whatever applies to you accordingly, and then you will have to provide documents that are mentioned here. It says clearly submit photocopies, which means you don't have to provide original documents. Just the front and back side of your passport or permanent resident card, whatever is asked here. Same goes for Canadian citizen. So I'm just going to select PR because that's what my case was. Then this Indian doesn't really mean from India. This Indian is someone who's the indigenous peoples of Canada registered under the Indian Act. Will not apply to most of you, so just ignore this. Second, are you the sponsor a citizen living outside Canada? So for me it was no. I was not a citizen, I'm a PR living outside Canada. If you check yes, which means you are a citizen living outside of Canada and sponsoring your spouse, you can sponsor your spouse from outside of Canada, by the way, only if you are a Canadian citizen, not a permanent resident. Permanent resident has to be inside Canada to sponsor the spouse. Got it? So if you are a citizen living outside Canada, then you can sponsor as long as you provide proof that you will live in Canada with your spouse and dependent children if applicable once they become PR. Number 3, do you, the sponsor, and the person you are sponsoring have children together who may have claim to Canadian citizenship? So if the sponsor is a Canadian citizen and they are sponsoring a spouse and you already have a child together, then your child is already a Canadian citizen even if they were born outside of Canada, as it says here. So then you're going to check yes, and then you will provide the documents that are mentioned here. It didn't apply to me, so I'm just going to check no and check this box. All right, and I am also going to check this box. Number 4, previous relationships. Are you, the sponsor, currently married to anyone other than the person you are sponsoring? So for most of the cases, it's going to be no. If you check yes, then you provide the documents that are mentioned here. Have you, the sponsor, previously been sponsored yourself for permanent residence, which means has someone else sponsored you before? So right now, the sponsor who's sponsoring their spouse, have you been sponsored by someone else? So this was not the case for me. I did my own permanent residence, so I did not get sponsored. So I'm just going to check no. I am sponsoring my wife, all right, but I was not sponsored by anybody else. Have you, the sponsor, been previously married? So this does not apply to me. If it did, then you will provide all the details here. Have you, the sponsor, ever previously been in a common law? So again, this did not apply to me, but if it does to you, then you provide the associated documents. All right, so number 5 is employment, source of income. So it clearly says here, do not complete this section if you are a Quebec resident. All right, so Quebec residents, you can skip this section. For everybody else, you have two options. If you are working in Canada, which means the sponsor is working in Canada, you can provide original letter from your employer, which means offer letter stating your period of employment, your salary and regular hours per week, or supporting financial documents such as you can provide your pay stubs or bank statements which show frequent deposits from your employer. And apart from that, you can provide your most recent notice of assessment or proof of income, option C. These are documents you will get from Canadian Revenue Agency, CRA. So what I'm guessing is this is not going to apply for a lot of you because you probably recently got married, left your poor sad spouse back home, and then you came to Canada and you started working. So you may already not have lived in Canada long enough to file taxes. So you will not have these notice of assessment or proof of income documents. So if you don't have these documents, which will be the case for most of you, it's fine. It says if you cannot provide a notice of assessment or proof of income for the most recent taxation year, you must provide an explanation, which is the explanation you will provide here. And you are then going to attach relevant supporting documents, which will include your pay stubs from your employer if you are employed, your bank statements, your credit history if you have any credit history, but definitely attach offer letter from your employer, pay stubs, and your bank statements. I would say 6 months of bank statements and salary slips would be more than enough, but the more the better. And if you have less, that's fine too. You can't do anything about it, but provide all the supporting documents if you cannot provide the notice of assessment and option C. All right. So this applies when you're working in Canada, which was my case. Then if you're not working in Canada, it says provide other documentation showing that you can support the person you're sponsoring. This must include an explanation of how you plan to support yourself and the sponsored person on a separate piece of paper. Now, one of the most common questions people ask is, how much income do you need to show for spousal sponsorship? So let me quickly take you to this page right here. This is the sponsor your spouse, partner or child page, and I'm going to link this in the description below. If you scroll down under the income requirement section, it clearly says in most cases there isn't an income requirement to sponsor your spouse. So the sponsor doesn't have to have a specific amount of salary in order to sponsor your spouse, okay? Because it clearly says that here. So don't worry about how much money you need to be making if you want to sponsor your spouse. As far as how much savings you need to show in your bank balance, that's a different story. So a lot of people also ask how much money or proof of funds you need to show. So when would that be the case? Let's say you're not working in Canada. So at this point, you're not employed, but you want to sponsor your spouse. You can still sponsor your spouse even if you're unemployed, as long as you can provide enough financial proof that you will be able to take care of your spouse once they get here. So it says provide other documentation showing that you can support the person you're sponsoring, which means that you will have to have certain amount of bank balance, and then you'll have to provide a detailed explanation on how you plan to support. So then you may ask, how much bank balance do you really need in order to sponsor your spouse? So let me show you another page real quick. Proof of funds. Now this page tells you how much proof of funds you need to bring or you need to have in your account when you migrate as a federal skilled worker. All right. So this doesn't really apply to spousal sponsorship, but this should give you a general idea about how much are they expecting for one person or two persons to take care of themselves. So if you scroll down here, this table shows you minimum amount you need to immigrate to Canada. So funds required in Canadian dollars for one person is 13,213. For two people is 16,449. Now I understand this applies to the express entry program, but these amounts should give you a rough idea about how much balance are they expecting to see, minimum balance in your account when you are sponsoring your spouse. So I would say at least have more than 16,449 in this table, which is the minimum amount of money required to take care of a family of two people. So the larger your number from 16,449, the better. But if it is much less than this amount, then they can ask for further documentation. I'm not saying your application will get rejected, but it will certainly get put on hold, or they will ask for additional proof of funds or additional documents. All right. So use this table as a reference point, but don't completely rely on it, because clearly this is for skilled immigrants and they have not really specifically mentioned how much funds you need for spousal sponsorship. All right. Just like they have not mentioned how much income you need for spousal sponsorship. So use your logic, use the reference materials I shared with you, and then make your best judgment. All right. Okay. So there's a couple things you can do to show this much balance. You already have an account here in Canada. You should, if you are sponsoring your spouse, it will help your case. So if you don't, get that as soon as possible. Once you have the account, transfer that much money which we just saw here from whatever your sources are. Either transfer your savings from your account outside of Canada. Let's say you have a bank in India and you can transfer the money from India to this account in the amount of 16,449 or more, so as to reflect that balance, and also link your bank account to your employer so that your pay stubs start coming into that account so that it gets regular activity. All right. So I would say that is the best way to show the funds. You can also show your funds in your existing bank accounts in your home country, but then you'll have to generate a lot of affidavits which show that you can readily withdraw those funds and make them available to you. It's just tedious and makes the process longer. I would recommend transfer your funds into your Canadian bank account and then provide the bank statement for that bank account. Okay, that will make it easier. So now let's look at supporting documents for sponsored person, which means the principal applicant. Okay, number one, identity documents, travel documents and passport. So goes without saying, you have to provide your valid passport and make sure it's not close to its expiration. Okay, if it's about to expire, I would recommend renew your passport and then start the application. All right. So you're going to check this box and it says if you, the principal applicant, are living in Canada, then you will also have to provide proof of your status, which means attach the copy of whatever visa or open work permit that you are living in Canada with. Okay, so just check this box if that applies to you. Then birth certificates, we already went over this, so you will have to provide them, check that. And if these apply to you here based on your country specific requirements, then check these boxes. Next up is civil status documents. So you will also have to provide these documents. Number one is marriage certificate, obviously, which will prove your legal marriage. So provide a copy of that. So you're going to check this. If civil union applies, check this box. If anything applies from previous relationships, then check the associated boxes. Otherwise, just check none of the above apply to me. Then third one is additional information about children. So this is not going to apply to a lot of you, but still I'm just going to quickly skim through this. So for minor children under the age of 18 where sponsor is not the legal parent, then you will have to fill this form 5604. I have not made any video about this yet. I don't know how this works, but you can download it from here and read the instructions about that and fill this out if this applies to you. Remember, the requirement is sponsor, not the legal parent. Okay, so then you're going to check this box. Otherwise, if your child is 22 years or older and dependent due to a physical or mental condition and dependent on you for financial support, then you are going to check this box. For adopted children, check this box. None of this applies to me, so I'm just simply going to print this out once I'm done and write NA. Right now I'm just going to leave it blank. Number 4, police clearance certificate. So you have to check this box. The principal applicant has to submit the police clearance certificate along with their application. Okay, not after the application, don't wait for it. You have to submit it right alongside your application. So if you're living in any other country outside of Canada, you will have to get the police clearance certificate from that country, and you can find the instructions at this link here. So let's say you're living in India right now and being sponsored, your sponsor is in Canada, then you, the principal applicant, will have to get the police clearance certificate from India. So you're going to check this box and write India here if that's where you're living right now outside of Canada. And if it also happens to be the country you live most of your life, then you will also check this box and mention that country here also. Okay, and let's assume you're living with your sponsor in Canada right now and you're on a tourist visa or a temporary work permit, and you have been living in Canada for more than 6 months, then you don't have to provide police certificates from Canada. You will still have to provide police certificates from your home country where you've lived most of your life, but not from Canada. Okay, so because I did my wife's sponsorship outland, she's in India, so she's going to check these boxes. Then military service, if it applies to you, then check yes and then check this box. Otherwise, you will check no. Okay. All right. So next section is section 5, photos. Now, this section is for your personal photo for your permanent resident card. This does not include photos for your wedding or customary celebrations or photos that you'll use to prove your relationship. That's a different section and we'll get to that later. But this section is just for your personal photo. So click this link here to learn all about the instructions. Also, I've made an entire video explaining how photos work, and I specifically talk about the permanent resident photo towards the end of that video. So check that video, should be showing up on the cards here and it is linked in the description below. All right, so you're going to check this box and move along. Next up is medical examination. So it says do not complete a medical exam at this time. Once you submit your application, it goes through the appropriate phases of processing. You will be given instructions for medical. Okay, so you can simply leave this part right now. You don't have to do anything here. Okay, so number 7, proof of relationship to sponsor. Now, this is a huge section, section 7, and this is probably one of the most important sections in this document checklist because this is where you will have to provide the most number of documents. So I'm not going to cover this particular section 7 in this video because I made an entire video about this section. It's called Relationship Documents 5533. It's on my channel. It should be showing up on the cards here and linked in the description below. So definitely check that video out before you complete this section. I explain all about what documents you need to prove your relationship, how you can procure them, and which boxes to check. Okay, this section is a little bit complicated, so pay real close attention when you go through this section. Watch that video and then come back to this checklist and check the necessary boxes. Final section is signatures. So number 1 is 1344. So yes, both the sponsor and principal applicant will have to sign it, online or on paper, doesn't matter, you have to sign it. And generic application, so yes, you will have to sign it. Even if you're applying online, by typing in your name, that's how you sign it. So this signature doesn't really mean signature by hand, but you have to check this box because you will will have to sign digitally or on paper. Okay, if additional dependents number 3 applies to you, then you will have to sign this, otherwise you can just check not applicable. Okay, then 5532. So yes, you will have to check all these 4 boxes. Both the sponsor and principal applicant will have to sign on paper or online, doesn't matter. Okay, then 5406. So yes, the principal applicant will have to sign, and if there is any other family members included in the application, they will also have to sign. Schedule A, yes, same thing applies, just like 5406. The signature is again by typing in your name. So check the family member section if it applies to you, otherwise definitely check the principal applicant section. Then use of a representative, for most cases this will apply, so you will have to check this box. Otherwise, if you're doing the application yourself, even if you're being sponsored, you will check not applicable. Okay, next, authority to release personal information to a designated individual. So this will not apply to most of you, so you're just going to select not applicable. Okay, and that completes the document checklist. So once you finish this document checklist, you may or may not sign this document checklist, because there is no place for you to sign it other than just checking the boxes for forms that you've signed. All right, so now let's talk about submission. So if you're doing the application on paper, the process is pretty straightforward. You will print this out and you will simply send it to your destination along with the rest of your application forms and documents. If you are doing the application online, let me show you how you can upload this document checklist on the online portal. So right now I'm in the permanent resident online portal page, and I'm inside the application that I did for my wife. If you don't know what this portal is, how it works, then check that video out. Should be showing up on the cards here and linked in the description. I explain everything about the permanent resident online portal. Okay, so once you've created an account, once you've started your application, you'll get to the forms section, you'll upload all the forms that you have to upload, and once you're done with the forms, you'll scroll down towards this supporting document or document area, where you literally upload all your documents. So you're going to check this arrow, click on document checklist, and this is where you are going to upload your checklist 5533, which you just finished. All right, this is where you'll upload all the other documents. This video is not about that. So that's how you will upload the document checklist online. Okay, so instructional videos for most of the forms and documents that we discussed in this video are linked in the description below, and some of them should be showing up on the screen here. All right, so I'm quickly going to roll some beautiful drone footage of Canada, and I'm slowly going to increase the background music as I give you 5 seconds to decide which links to click. This is Hit Submit in Canada. My name is Suyesh. I'll catch you in the next one.